On March 14th, there was an election in Pennsylvania, and it might be really important. Or it might just seem really important. They are calling it a special election, but they're only calling it that because it's not happening in its normal time. Any election that takes place outside of its normal time is special. But if I learned anything by being raised in the 90s, it's that every election is special. Every last one of you. Hi internets, I'm Ross. This is the Talk Better Project. On March 14th, Pennsylvania voters in the southwestern corner of the state elected Conor Lamb, a Democrat, to replace a Republican who had resigned. His competition in this race was Rick Saccone, a Republican. It was a very close race, and Lamb only won by about 750 votes out of a total 226,000. 8 months from now is when the elections should have happened, because elections for Congress normally happen every 2 years. But normally, congressmen who claim to be pro-life and family values don't need to resign because they encourage their mistresses to get an abortion. Whoops. So Lamb and Saccone were competing to replace that congressman 8 months early, and Lamb won. But why is everyone talking about it? Well, if you've seen my most recent episodes, you can probably guess. Midterm elections. That magical time every 4 years when 1/3 of the Senate, all of the House of Representatives, and a whole bunch of state governors are elected midway through the current president's 4-year term. Midterms can be really important because of a historical trend where the party of an unpopular president tend to lose a lot of seats during the midterms. And the current president is unpopular. And while the Republican Party may control both houses of Congress, it's entirely possible that the Democratic Party could take control after the midterms. So even though they're still 8 months away, a lot of people are starting to think that Conor Lamb winning in Pennsylvania is a sign that a big change is going to happen in November for the Democratic Party. Most of the people saying that are left-leaning. Obviously, Republicans aren't going to be excited about the chance of losing big. That's not an altogether crazy thing to think. If we go way back to a year and a half ago, that same exact district voted Republican in the presidential elections by nearly 20 percentage points. Just kind of makes sense that Republicans should be able to hold on to the office. Especially since that district has had a Republican representative since 2003. Especially since the Republican Party dumped a ton of money into advertising in that district. Especially since the president himself visited twice to support the candidate who basically just ran as a duplicate of the president himself. Fundraising and spending are really the big reasons that a lot of people are thinking that this special election was, well, special. The Democrat was able to raise for his campaign nearly $3 million, while the Republican only managed to clear about $900,000. Then when it came to spending, groups outside of Lamb's campaign spent around $3 million. Republican special groups spent nearly $14 million in that district, and that is a lot of money to spend backing a losing horse. The Democrats found it much easier to raise money and didn't need to spend as much to get a win. If that fact stays true for the next 8 months, you can imagine why a lot of people think it might be a big deal. So that's the argument for it being a big deal. You might hear the term wave election being used. That's just a term that means a big backlash all at once against the governing party. A lot of people are starting to say that this special election is a precursor for a wave election in the midterms for the Democratic Party. Or it might not really be a big deal. Yes, it's important for that district, but that district is not the rest of the United States, and Conor Lamb is not a typical Democrat candidate. As columnist Patricia Murphy said, this election boils down to a fight for national bragging rights. Plain and simple. Look only at the numbers. This race doesn't change the majority in Congress. Pennsylvania has 18 congressional districts, so there are 17 other Pennsylvania members of Congress who weren't voted on. There are 434 other members of Congress who weren't voted on all across the United States. Funny enough, Pennsylvania recently changed the map of its congressional districts, so the district that just voted won't actually exist in the same way in the midterms. Plus, the winner Lamb will have to run for office all over again in only 8 months, and what major laws could he really write in that time? Most importantly, though, Lamb disagrees with the Democratic Party on things like the recent tariffs and gun control. In fact, he refused to let any major Democrats campaign for him in the state, except for Joe Biden. But it's Uncle Joe. Mitch McConnell would let Joe Biden campaign for him. But he's on record as saying that he's opposed to his party's leader, Nancy Pelosi. He is not a typical Democrat candidate, and he can't be what the Democratic Party wants to see running for office in 8 months. So, like everything in politics, the facts are complicated. But so are which facts you hear from whom and why they say they're important. Thanks, Pennsylvania. If you look in the description below the video, you'll find a bunch of articles, some from people who think that this special election was a very big deal, and some who don't. And there are people from the left and right in both groups. And while you're down there checking those out, leave a comment. Is a Democrat winning in a district that should have gone to the Republican 8 months before midterms a big deal? Or not? Thanks for watching. This is the Talk Better Project. If you liked it, it really helps if you share it with someone else. If you really liked it, it helps me even more if you go to patreon.com/talkbetterproject and join the great group of people who are helping me make it. Thanks. See you around. Popular president. He refused to let any Democrats, or in fact, he refused to let any major, any Democrat candidate, or he's opposed to his party's leader, normally Congress, or campaign for him. But normally Congressmen who claim to be pro-violence.